Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty RoundTable Radio Talk Show.
Earthquakes, train wrecks, Super Bowl, and election fraud. Happy to have you along, my fellow Americans. I'm Sam Bushman, and we're just getting started with hard-hitting news the networks refuse to use on Liberty RoundTable Live. The good doctor's in the house, well known for the DVD series, Collegiate Series to Preserve the Nation, also known for the incredible weekly Q&As every Thursday evening on the Constitution, answering constitutional questions, breaking down the Founding Fathers' view on all kinds of things. It's all available at freedomsrisingsun.com. You sign up, you get a ticket. Every Thursday night you can join and, hey, participate. People ask questions. The good doctor provides constitutional answers. And then, of course, the next day on Liberty Roundtable Live, we take the top discussion points and bring them to you. Why? Because they come from the American people, folks. And the Roundtable is designed to bring incredible guests to you, incredible commentary from all kinds of organizations, but also to take information from we the people and see what you're talking about, what matters to you. So go to freedomsrisingsun.com, get your ticket to ride, if you will, and then become part of the webinars every Thursday night, 7 p.m. Mountain Time with a good doctor. Freedom's Call is what you can look for on BitChute and on Rumble and other places to find the show. And they're just great stuff, folks. Welcome, Dr. Bradley.
Well, thank you very much. We made it through another week. In fact, we're making them so fast, it'll be the end of 2026 before we know it. It seems like time is accelerating to me. So,
Merry Christmas, Doctor. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. At least Easter.
No, you're right. Time does fly, though. It's insane. And the older we get, I don't know if it's age that makes us feel that way, if the world's really, going faster. I think it's all of the above mixed together. But no doubt, times are hastening. And we live in a very turmoil-filled world as we wait for the Savior, Jesus Christ, to return. That's what I'm looking for. By the way, there was a 3.5 magnitude earthquake. It occurred in northern Utah County, Utah, near Thanksgiving Point. They say about 4.4 miles west of Lehi, shortly before 1 p.m. yesterday. And I did not feel it, even though I'm only a couple of miles away from it. My wife did feel it. They say the U.S. Geological Survey, USGS or whatever, confirmed the earthquake details for everybody. Reports of shaking, they say, extended from West Mountain, that's at the southern end of the county, or Utah Lake is what they call it, all the way to West Bountiful. And they say even some people felt it in Salt Lake City, but I didn't feel it, and I'm not very far away, but my wife did in the same house, so it's very interesting. I just must be oblivious is the problem. The tremor was also felt in Lehi, where residents reported strong jolts in buildings, and they say this event follows a 4.7 magnitude earthquake near the Utah-Wyoming border that took place just a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, they say the USGS says anybody who felt the earthquake, please submit a report on their website. I'm not doing that. I'll tell you that right now. Anyway, very interesting indeed, Dr. Bradley. But there might be reasons for these earthquakes, more than just natural disasters, right?
Well, I don't know. And call me a cynic. I don't know what you guys know enough that I've always got a head scratcher going. You know, basically the way you've spoken where it was centered and everything, it sounds almost like it's almost directly under the NSA site that's there at that area.
Very close, yeah.
And you just say, well, what the heck? I mean, are they doing some underground work for some nefarious scheme? Who knows what's going on? But man, live, I think, closer to the Utah-Wyoming 4.7, and I didn't feel that either. So, oblivion or obliviousness seems to
just pray we're not past feeling, you and I, Doctor, because
I hope not.
Anyway, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Just thought I'd bring that to your attention, though. There are earthquakes in diverse places, as the scriptures teach, before the Savior comes. So we're watching signs of the times, real time, if you will. There was also a freight train carrying propane that derailed in Connecticut. There's shelter-in-place orders near the Yukon, they say. 14 cars of a 43-car train derailed near the, how do you say this thing? Winnemantic River in Mansfield, Connecticut. And they say, including 4 propane tanker cars that fell into the water, for crying out loud. Officials reported so far no injuries and no propane leaks, but issued a shelter-in-place order within a half-mile radius as members in hazmat teams and all that are working on recovery efforts. They say that it's going to take days for that one. I bring this up because we've seen train wrecks over the last several years in many places in America, and it's just continuing, Doctor. Problems with the infrastructure, problems with the trains, the engineers don't know, but it seems pretty interesting that with regularity we're seeing train wrecks.
You know, it's interesting. It brings to thought, and maybe a preparatory note could be done by people that are in these kind of situations. We have a couple of train tracks that go through our valley, one on the west side, more central, towards the east, if you will, a little bit. But it's interesting to me that, you're oblivious, again, speaking of being oblivious, to most of your train passings, unless you're right near a crossing or something like that. But trains do carry a very eclectic kind of cargo. I mean, some of it's quite caustic or dangerous. I mean, you talk about if a train load of propane goes up, that's a pretty big bloom of flame. And you just, maybe sometimes there's corrosive things. Maybe there's things that if the gases escape, they'd be poisonous. And like you point out, there more and more, it seems like we're hearing of things, and they're pretty long range effects. I kind of keep track a little bit, not carefully, but some of these train wrecks are really train wrecks, and they're still a big problem. A couple of years, 2 or 3 years, whatever, after their wreck, and they're still haggling over how do we get this mess cleaned up, because some of the communities are pretty adversely affected.
Amen to that. And I bring it up because you would think in the modern era with all the capabilities we have, think about, I'm not very smart, but just follow me. A train track, you don't have left and right unless the track goes that direction. It just follows the track. You don't have up or down to worry about. You just pretty much have forwards and backwards along that track. And if those things are crashing with regularity, just imagine what self-driving cars with the ability to go left and right and backwards and forwards and all these different things. It seems like that'd be harder to keep safe than even a train. But yet we have, with regularity, have train wrecks. And oftentimes there's engineers that are involved, so there's people involved still. And just imagine when you take the track away, and so you got more mobility of different choices and angles and everything else, and then have these self-driving cars without people involved. If we can't keep trains safe on their simple trajectories, so to speak, with engineers involved, and then we're going to have driverless vehicles, it seems insane to me, Doctor.
Well, the driverless vehicles are, oh my heavens, maybe I'm just an old fuddy-duddy that doesn't really understand it all, but I have had computers do stupid things on me. I've had my cell phone fail on me. I've had all sorts of things. The technology has to be rebooted. And if somebody's driving down the freeway at 70 miles an hour and the computer glitches, you just say, holy cow, what's going to be the deal?
Reboot, but, hold on.
And then the problem is
can reboot.
They start on fire and they burn for 7 months. I mean, I'm overstating that, obviously, but the fact is,
right.
some of these
the electric vehicles burn forever, and they're very, in my opinion, dangerous. I don't know why we've embraced them like we have. They're super heavy on the roads compared to other vehicles. They're hard to get charged. I mean, there's a lot of problems. But here's the reason that I bring all this up. It's kind of interesting because during a Senate hearing on the future of self-driving cars, Waymo's chief safety officer revealed that the company hires remote operators from the Philippines. The hearing was conducted by the U.S. Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. And I guess this guy was the Waymo leader. He was responding to Senator Ed Markey. And he said, these, remote people kind of, they don't drive the cars, but they give guidance. Now, I don't really know what that means if you don't drive a car, but you give guidance. Anyway, they're worried about the outsourcing of American jobs, and they're also concerned about cybersecurity. And but they say, don't worry, all the operators are thoroughly trained and checked. They all have driver's licenses in their own countries, but maybe not in the United States. And as you know, or maybe you don't know, Waymo is a subsidiary of Alphabet Inc. So it's basically Google. There you go, Doctor. So the future of driving or automated cars are kind of in the mix, and the whole thing's just strange to me. If we've got train wrecks, like I say, they only go forwards and backwards pretty much, right? And you got train wrecks with humans involved, and then you're going to have, automated drivers with no humans on the road. Usually with a train, too, unless the train's coming the other way, you don't really have anybody in front of you or behind you to worry about, right? Well, when you have driverless cars, you have everything all around you and all kinds of things happening real time. Anyway, just a kind of precursor. We're going to have trouble putting these, automated vehicles on the road. I've been in one of them, and it's weird. All right, hang tight. Liberty Roundtable Live.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
Introducing PrepStartsNow.com, your ultimate guide to readiness and peace of mind. We offer practical preparedness tools, training, and education to take your family's household readiness to the next level. Browse the prep shop for essential products, check out our planning guides, and stay informed with our prep blog. Visit PrepStartsNow.com and subscribe to our emails for exclusive offers, new products, and future events. Remember, preparedness begins with PrepStartsNow.com.
Former Sheriff Richard Mack recounts in his book The Proper Role of Law Enforcement how he came to realize while working as a beat cop how wrong the all-too-common orientation of police officers is when they think of their job as being to write tickets and arrest people. Richard Mack tells of his personal transformation from by-the-number cop to Constitution-conscious defender of citizen safety and freedoms. Learn what it really means to serve and protect. Purchase your copy at CSPOA.org. That's CSPOA.org.
All right, it looks like Bad Bunny will perform all of his halftime show in Spanish, mocking America. They're trying to basically replace our culture. It's disastrous. If I bring that up, they say I'm a white supremacist, hater, bigot, and everything else. They lie. The truth is, I just think America is English. I don't have any problem with people speaking Spanish, but, do we really want when, 90% of the American people at least know English and don't know Spanish? I don't even know what percent of the American people know Spanish for that matter. But yet we're going to have the halftime show for the biggest event of the year on Super Bowl Sunday. In fact, the event's so big, Donald's going to be part of the pregame show because he's going to be interviewed by this NBC guy. It's a two-part series. 2 nights ago, he was on getting promoted and highlighted as a teaser, and then the pregame. And so you got Donald pregame and Bunny halftime. It's a tragedy, in my opinion. It's a sad day in America. So people are creating their own halftime shows in place of Turning Point USA, the leader. It's called the All-American Halftime Show, and it'll be available as the alternative to the Super Bowl performance. They say Turning Point will air the All-American Halftime Show during Super Bowl halftime featuring Kid Rock, Brantley Gilbert, Lee Brice, and let's see, what's her name? I should know this. Gabby Barrett is her name, and she's basically a great music performer and everything else. I do know, all about who she is and everything else. But they're going to air this. They've got that all going on. They say the free live stream will be available on X, Rumble, and YouTube. Partner networks will be also involved: The Daily Wire, Real America's Voice, TBN, The Charge, the National News Desk, NTV, and OWN networks will also cover it. Viewers can tune in Sunday night via your preferred platform. Just tune in a few minutes early, they say. Or AmericanHalftimeShow.com is where you can go. That's AmericanHalftimeShow.com or TPUSA.com. Any of those will work. I'm not really a fan of entertainment on Sunday, by the way, at all, because I think we got to keep the Sabbath day holy. Just my opinion. However, I do kind of want to go and watch this at Turning Point, because if Turning Point gets a massive number of people, it's going to send a message. And in my opinion, we need to send a message is what we need to do. So there you have that. Dr. Bradley, what do you say to all that? You going to watch the alternative halftime show?
No. People, I mean, I give simple answers sometimes. There's usually a more complex answer behind that. But, people have to keep reminding me that what is it the 8th of February that the Super Bowl thing is? So we have bread and circuses for everybody now. I mean, if you've got a little bit of a religiosity perspective, or you want to look at a guy dance on the stage in a dress, I think the NFL players are a little bit head scratching over this whole thing. But I think it's really funny, not funny. It's an enigma. It's difficult to understand that everybody has to get the bread and circuses licks in, and everybody has to have their point and counterpoint. And, okay, Sam, I'm just going to, this sounds a little bit weird. It probably bears more explanation than I'd ever have time to give. But, I probably talk too much. You guys have probably figured that out already. And I usually have a longer answer than maybe a question even was supposed to have. But I found out, too, that I kind of talk too much to God. I mean, what? How can you do that? Well, there's way too much, I'm thankful, give me this, give me that, whatever. And I'm truncating the whole conversation. But the fact of the matter is, I've kind of come to the conclusion I need to listen more. And so if, whether it's people, if I listen to my wife more, my children, my grandchildren, or whether I'm interacting with God, if I spend more time listening than I do talking, it usually turns out better. And I think I think that's one of the big problems in today's society. A lot of people today know about God, but they don't know God. And how do you know somebody without having an exchange with them? So
that's right. That's why prayer is so important and involvement is so important. And normally I just blow off the Super Bowl and say, hey, we ought to not be doing that on Sunday, and I'll just do something else with my time and everything else. In this case, though, I do want to send a message, though. I don't want a Spanish-speaking rapper with perverted music as the halftime in America. That's taking it to a whole, they've been taking it to a whole new level. Years and years and years ago, they used to have children's choirs sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl. How do I know? My wife was in one of those choirs, and she sang at the Super Bowl. And so they used to just have mere mortals and just average people, and it was a way to, really be a family kind of affair and everything else. We're moving away from that. Now it's basically, star-studded people. Much of it is from the occult or from satanic kind of stuff, and now it's going to be satanic stuff in Spanish. And you just go, whoa, we're getting too far afield. So I think Turning Point trying to bring it back in a meaningful way. I personally think we ought to be promoting the Sabbath day, keep it holy idea, but at least they're trying to have a decent family-oriented halftime show. And so there's something to be said good for that, even though I don't really think either of them is what I want to spend my time on the Sabbath doing, Doctor. So your point's right.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't think that everybody ought to go get on their knees and pray during the Super Bowl and instead of the Super Bowl. But what I'm saying is that anytime we have interaction with deity, I mean, your morning prayers, your evening prayers, if you're out on a walk and you're contemplating God's goodness and the beauty of his creations, all that kind of stuff, I guess what I would suggest is spending more time listening all the time, not just on this particular Sunday where we have the bread and circuses stuff being offered to us, but all the time. I think we'll be better off if we knew God rather than just knew about him. So, sure. That's just a personal perspective.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel an obligation to tell everybody about the halftime show. That's the alternative to Bad Bunny. And, if you want to keep the Sabbath day holy, you probably wouldn't do either, right? But, hey, at least it's a better choice than what we've got now. And, it's all about choices. And if you're going to watch the Super Bowl, hey, just switch to the halftime show that's the TPUSA one, because at least it'll be better and it will send a message. And, the real message that we as the American people should send is we don't want to watch football on Sunday at all. We want to make Sunday a sacred day, a day of delight, an outward signal of an inward commitment to Christ and to the things that matter. I mean, that's where I personally think the Sabbath needs to be. Charlie Kirk was getting there too. And so it's kind of interesting, that they're going to do the halftime show. It's hard to know how to position this. How do you be civil and position it in a meaningful way? It's good what they're doing because it's better than the bunny perverted Hispanic show. At the same time, it's not what I think really is the best solution on Sunday. So anyway, it's very difficult to kind of navigate modern times, Doctor. Is this a better alternative, you think?
Well, you've got options. I mean, that's the thing that's really cool about America. You can pick many paths, and your path is the one that ultimately and finally determines what's really important to you. So everybody has a path, and that's exciting. This idea of being able to make a choice and take that path, paths lead us different directions. And so, yeah, I think it's cool. America gives us opportunity to have options.
And it's good news that our opportunity is still alive. All right. Should the federal government take over elections? That was a hot topic for you guys last night, right, Doctor?
Yeah, that was out of the hopper when we took the first question. That was the first question. And, Trump is making a lot of noise about that. And of course, when I talked about it, I got the Constitution out and looked at Article 1, Section 2, and that's the inference that, honestly, the states are going to be in control of their elections and decide the qualifications of those that are on there. So there was an inference there. But Article 1, Section 4 says the times, places, and manner of holding elections for senators and representatives will be prescribed in each state by the legislature thereof. There's a semicolon at the end of that. We can talk about that if you want to. But the fact of the matter, that was the original intent. It's that the states that was withheld from the general government.
And it worked well for a long time, ladies and gentlemen. What I think the problem is they've gone to state and federal already. That's why we've skipped everybody and skipped the local precincts and skipped accountability. And now we have mail-in ballots and all these other goofy things, voting for weeks and months. And nobody has any real way to track the elections. But if you move back to the precinct level and you said, hey, each precinct is about an average of 1,000 voters in America, give or take, depending on the precincts. And you said each precinct is going to locally know their neighbors. They're going to have it in a place where you can detect who's not from around there. You can be very specific about that. And then you have the, vote counts on video. And then you have vote watchers that, count the numbers and make sure everybody agrees. And then they sign under the penalty of perjury to the vote on the local level. They vote same day. They vote, and then you've got video and, hey, under the penalty of perjury, you verify the vote. Yes, indeed, I know there was this many ballots cast and this many for this person and that person. You could deal with it pretty easily at the local level. You don't need to go 5,000 or 2,000 or whatever miles away to Washington, D.C. Everything they touch, they destroy, Doctor.
Well, yeah, and in fact, the 14th, 15th, 17th, 19th, 24th, 26th, and the 1965 Voter Act, as amended, have all seized general government control. But it's even deeper than that. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
We'll talk about that. It's deeper than that because Congress had the opportunity to look into election fraud in the 2020 election. And then they had the scandal of January the 6th, which turned out to be a big old scandalous lie and manipulation. But Congress never did their due diligence like they were asked to by the American people about elections either. We'll talk about that too coming up. Dr. Scott Bradley with me, freedomsrisingsun.com. I'm Sam Bushman. You're watching the one and only hard-hitting, freedom-loving, faith-filled, fantastic Friday edition of Liberty Roundtable Live.
Exposing corruption, informing citizens, pursuing liberty. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
Breaking news this hour from Town Hall. I'm Rich Thomason. Iran's top diplomat says talks with the U.S. and Oman are off to a very good start, and now negotiators must speak with their leadership. The BBC's Caroline Hawley says Oman's foreign minister acted as mediator between the two sides.
The stakes are high not just for Iran, but the whole region, with several Middle Eastern countries involved in trying to calm tensions and avoid a new war. But distrust between the two sides is huge, as are the differences between them. Iran wants to focus only on curbing its nuclear program in return for a lifting of sanctions. But the US also wants limits on Tehran's ballistic missiles and for it to stop supporting militant groups around the Middle East.
Today's talks were brief, lasting about 1 hour. The family of Today's Show co-host Savannah Guthrie is renewing a plea for their mother's kidnapper to contact them. Nancy Guthrie's son Cameron posting a second plea on social media, speaking on behalf of the family.
Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom.
The 84-year-old was taken from her home over the weekend and is without critical medication. Police say blood found on her home's porch does belong to Nancy Guthrie. The FBI has posted a $50,000 reward for information leading to her recovery and the arrest and conviction of the kidnapper or kidnappers. 3 people killed, 6 others injured. A 92-year-old driver collided with a bicyclist and then slammed into a grocery store in Los Angeles. Investigators say it was a tragic accident. Stocks rallying on Wall Street. The Dow is up 745 points for a gain of 1.5%. The Nasdaq 189 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Have you noticed losing weight is harder than it used to be? You're eating better and exercising, but the scale barely moves? The real problem isn't willpower, it's metabolic dysfunction. And standard dieting just makes it worse. PhD Weight Loss has helped thousands fix the root cause of stubborn weight. Take their free metabolic assessment at fixmyweightloss.com. Fixmyweightloss.com. It's quick, personalized, and shows why your body is resisting weight loss so you know exactly what to fix. Visit fixmyweightloss.com. That's fixmyweightloss.com.
The stock market is at an all-time high. The dollar is under pressure, and leading economists are warning that the global financial system is changing. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000 right now to get your free gold investment guide, plus your free copy of economist Ken Rogoff's book, Our Dollar, Your Problem. Find out about a tax and penalty-free rollover in 2026. Gold and silver can surge when the economy shifts, and they don't wait for permission. Consult your financial advisor before investing. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000.
Get ready to be part of something incredible. We're breaking barriers and delivering the powerful stories that mainstream media won't touch. Your support is what fuels our mission to revolutionize journalism and bring you the truth. Join our passionate community of changemakers by donating at libertynewsradio.com today. Together, we're creating the future of news.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
I believe there will come a time when we are all judged on whether or not we took a stand in defense of all life from the moment of conception until our last natural breath. As a teenager, I gave my first public speech in my church. My hand shook, my heart pounded. I thought to myself, I can't do this, but somehow I did, and because I wanted to talk about things that were important, I persisted. I chided my church as a senior in high school for not seeming to care about the not yet born, for looking the other way, and for not taking a stand on life. I will be in earnest. I will not equivocate, and I will not excuse. I will not retreat an inch, and I will be heard. One thing I promise you, I will always take a stand for life.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about Trump's effort to federalize, if you will, the elections. And we were saying there was problems. There's a half a dozen amendments out there that violate the original intent, plus a Voter Act of 1965 as amended. And so this erosion of the state control of their elections has been going on for a long time. And the problem is that a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes we're probably not even aware of. In fact, here a couple dozen years ago, the general government decided, we're going to go to a mail-in ballot, we're going to go to machine balloting and all that kind of stuff. And they started marching that way, but they funded the states to move that direction. Utah, for example, Salmon Mine's home state, was early adapters of this. And I think that we're far enough down the road right now in Utah that some people, and not nearly enough in my opinion, are beginning to recognize that this eternal balloting thing that happens for days and days, maybe weeks sometimes in the fall, this idea of paperless, if you will, going to machines that can be easily hacked. And Utah's exacerbated their own problem with the way they've got the governor and the lieutenant governor. It's kind of like a president, vice president of the state, if you will. The governor doesn't run the elections, but the vice president does. So if you think of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris out there pulling the levers for government and their team, if you will, it becomes very problematic. And I think this past election demonstrated that. And if we get a full audit, I think it's going to be shocking to most people that things have really become challenging in terms of the elections. And the elections are our safeguard of our
and I submit
liberty.
Donald has a very serious point to worry about, because there are election problems all the way from mismanagement to fraud. Trump's right to point that out. To me, though, it's the right discussion or the right concern. Wrong remedy, Doctor.
Well, it is. Now, again, there's been election fraud. I mean, we have had people elected. I mean, go back and look at when Lyndon Baines Johnson first went into the Senate. I mean, he won his election. It was a primary election fraud that got him to the lead guy on his party ticket, and then he won. Then we ended up with him being in there for a long time. We ended up with him being vice president. We ended up with him being president. And the happily ever after story kind of unfolds itself, but that his election in Texas was a fraudulent election. So yes, we have had that, but my problem, there's a lot of problems with it. But first of all, the founders wanted it to be done within the states, because if you have 50 states and hundreds literally of election departments
Venues,
or
precincts,
if you have hundreds of these, and one or two of them go off the rails, it's not nearly like one single location going off the rails at the general level, the national level.
And a senator was asked about this very topic, and it came across on USA Radio News yesterday, and I captured the soundbite. Let's play that, and then we'll respond to it, because it's exactly the point you're making. Liz?
Senate Majority Leader John Thune is rejecting President Trump's call to nationalize voting in the United States.
It comes after Trump told Dan Bongino, a conservative podcaster and former deputy FBI director, Republicans should take over the management of elections in 15 states. Thune said that he is supportive of only citizens voting and showing ID at polling places, but added that he is not in favor of federalizing elections. The South Dakota Republican also noted it would be harder to hack 50 election systems than it is to hack one.
That is the point Dr. Bradley's making, and the senator's right on that score. But I don't want to even deal with 50. I want to deal with thousands. There's over 100,000 precincts in America, each of them about 1,000 voters. I want to see it done on the very local level, where people are accountable to one another, where we have video evidence of the counting, where people swear under the penalty of perjury. If it's good enough for my taxes, it's good enough for people who count election ballots, Doctor.
No, absolutely. And the problem is this usurpation has been going on for years. And you create the problem. Well, I try not to create problems, but let's say a problem is created by the organization that wants a certain outcome. They create the problem and they bring the solution. Look, if the parties, private entities, were running the elections, these private entities have skin in the game. And this is a bias that they're inclined to run their agenda. And that's what happens. And we're doing this at every level. I mean, they want to agendize the Supreme Court to a political party, and the whole alliance should be to maintain the foundation established in the United States Constitution. But everybody thinks you pull the levers enough in every level of government, you're ultimately and finally going to have total control. And when you have that, you have tyranny. And the Founding Fathers helped us realize that in so many different ways. But if Trump truly wants the Republicans to run elections in 15 states, I don't know where it is, jurisdictions, wherever he's talking, it's like, what could go wrong? Happily ever after.
It's disaster. Now, the Congress does have a role in elections, and the American people on January the 6th tried to peacefully go after the, open air, rally that they had. They walked over to the Capitol, and most of them tried to be peaceful and prayed, and, they really wanted Congress to do the right thing and look into the elections, and Congress used that as an excuse to never really even look into this. But there is a role for Congress in elections, right?
Well, there is, but the fact is they want to usurp the entire role.
So let's talk about what their role really is in elections, right?
Well, they do have to, first of all, we can go back in and talk about counting the electoral votes. And that was where they really abrogated their responsibility, and that they did not look. There's several constitutional.
So this
places.
idea that we want Congress to look at it and they failed and won't do it, and then later, years later, we want the general government to monitor and maintain and run all elections, that's insanity. But there's guidelines the Constitution provides, is my point, Doctor.
Well, there is, let's just take, for example, in Article 3, when two states were at odds because of the way the elections were being handled, they filed with the Supreme Court to have the Supreme Court look at it. And with two states being involved, the Supreme Court does immediately take that action. The Supreme Court refused to do that. It's almost like they saw the train off the tracks. They wanted it to continue down the ravine and off the cliff.
Well,
so the Supreme Court blinked.
The justices needed to take that. When they turn it down, they should have all been impeached.
Well, that's the problem. Is
because otherwise there's no redress of grievance, is there? For the state,
every step of the way we're having failures, and for Trump to say, "Oh no, we've got to take over this whole thing," and yea, verily, I as the monarch will be the judge, jury, and hangman on this thing. And no, that is not it. We need all of those layers of separation. We need to have independence. We need to have justification and certification at every level. And right now, they're talking about rolling it into one big ball.
So that's the problem, ladies and gentlemen. So the answer to the question is, should the federal government take over elections? My response is never. They have a very limited role, but they're not even doing what they've been constitutionally mandated to do. And you want to basically have them shirk that duty like they've shirked half the duties relating to the other branches of government, taking control and usurping power from Congress, and Congress doesn't even whimper, and then we want to give more authority to the general government in this topic? I think absolutely not. We need to go the other direction entirely, and the other direction that I would propose would be on the precinct level. Let local precinct leaders move to paper ballots, move to same-day voting, move to counting under the penalty of perjury, and vote watchers to verify. You could have 6 or 3 or 3 or 5 or whatever vote counters, and they would have to confirm each ballot. And you would say, Sam, that'll take too long. It'll never work. No, not if you have each precinct. You only have about 1,000 votes to count. That doesn't take forever. It's a while, but it doesn't take forever. And if you do it right and put it under video, it can go fairly quickly. Once everybody agrees, you lock down your numbers and say, these are the numbers. Here's the and we're going to swear under the penalty of perjury, and then we're going to send those vote numbers to wherever they are to be, merged and counted and, totaled, and that's fine. But you could trace it back to paper ballots. You could trace it back to video evidence of the counting. You could trace it back to people that are under penalty of perjury to document the numbers. And those things would go a long way towards honest elections. Moving it to the national level, that doesn't build any confidence at all. Why Trump would even propose such a thing when it's blatantly unconstitutional, and it's certainly the wrong direction in the first place. We don't need government moved further away from the people, Doctor.
You're correct. And I think about most of my life, what you just described was how elections were handled. And
except for the penalty of perjury and the video parts. But yes.
Sometimes you counted votes into the evening. I remember the Kennedy-Nixon election that went into the evening. But the fact of the matter is there was no computers. And the fact of the matter is the people did it. And the fact of the matter is
we got the numbers same day or that evening or whatever else virtually every time. Now we don't get that at all because the computers are unreliable and they have all kinds of mishaps, some intentional, some not, who knows, whatever. But I want to tell you, we reject the general government taking over elections. They even failed to look into the last fraudulent election because there was a scandal. They should have came back and took it up even after, but they never did that either. Republicans and Democrats together selling us out. The Melania film coming up.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Step into the boots of the American West with Range Magazine, where grit meets grace. This is a front row seat to the stories, struggles, and triumphs of ranchers, farmers, and stewards of the land. From jaw-dropping photography to no-nonsense reporting, Range brings you the untold tales of life on the range. Whether you're a city dweller with a cowboy's heart or living life where the pavement ends, Range speaks to the soul of the West. Subscribe today at rangemagazine.com.
As a parent, is receiving a faith-based, character-focused education for your children difficult to find? Do you believe that godly principles should be a central component in your child's education? Imagine a school where faith and integrity are at its center, where heritage and responsibility instill character. For over 40 years, American Heritage School has been educating both hearts and minds, bringing out academic excellence. This is the school where character and embracing the providence of a living God are fundamental, where students' national test scores average near the 90th percentile. With American Heritage School's advanced distance education program, distance is no longer an issue. With an accredited LDS-oriented curriculum from kindergarten through 12th grade, your children can attend from anywhere in the world. American Heritage School will prepare your child for more than a job. It will prepare them for life. To learn more, visit american-heritage.org. That's american-heritage.org.
All right, we're discussing Melania. That's the film that's out. First weekend got over $7 million. Everybody was shocked. They're scrambling to promote it in theaters everywhere. Who's they? Amazon. They're the ones that paid $75 million, an unprecedented amount to get the film created in the first place. $40 million to create the film, $35 million in advertising. It's in theaters everywhere. They want it to be in more theaters. But, hey, the summary of the film, Melania, the film, offers a polished, behind-the-scenes portrait of Melania Trump, basically focusing on her personal story, public role, and life, navigating the spotlight as the First Lady. It really covers the 20 days previous to Donald Trump being inaugurated the second time around, so Trump 47, if you will. I personally would rather see a sketch of her life, more details about her life, not just the 20 days in advance and everything else. But it certainly is a look behind the scenes, as polished as it is. Kind of interesting to at least see the other side. Most folks don't know much about the First Lady. Doctor?
You know, it's really interesting to me. I've been,
Did you watch the film?
Are you kidding? There's two chances of me doing that, slim and none.
Come on, Doctor. Come on, Doctor.
And honestly, I would have been oblivious to it, except for it was in the press, and everything that was in advance of it was the pundits from the industry, the film industry, were saying,
they're just downing it 100% because they hate it all.
And so it was a complete shock that it had. In fact, it had an opening weekend that showed a higher level of interest than any other previous documentary type film in probably at least the last dozen or 2 years. And so everybody's shocked about it. And now suddenly they're scrambling and saying, wow, there is more interest out here for that than we thought. but it's kind of an enigma in many ways.
Are you willing to go see it?
No, I'm not going to go see it.
No,
I mean, what would I go see it for, Sam?
Why not?
I honestly, it's a little too fluffy, probably, and I don't know enough to be critical.
Your point's right about that. So let me tell you a quick story. We had on Sheriff Mack with us on Tuesday, and him and his wife went to see the Melania movie. And after about 10 minutes, Sheriff Mack couldn't take it anymore, and he left and went and saw Greenland 2. And his wife finished the other show, and she really liked it, and he couldn't even take it for 10 minutes, so he left.
Well, like I say, it's pretty fluffy, but let's just think about this for a second. This shows the interest of the polarized America. Certain people are still very, very focused on the Trumps, and Melania was a very, I mean, she's kind of an unknown factor on this in a way. She's very, kind of a side character almost in all of the things that happen. And so people were intrigued. But the point is, there are people that are still devotedly attached to the Trumps. And on the other hand, there's the acrimony that the, Hollywood crowd generally feels towards them. And so these kind of biases were showing very much. But if you stop and think about it, I can't think of anybody since Jackie Kennedy that has had the, the intrigue that might be associated with Melania. Jackie Kennedy, she was very much an elegant lady. She dressed impeccably. She graceful and intelligent, all that kind of stuff. Long-suffering with their husband's philandering. But at any rate, wait a minute, would that be a parallel too? But at any rate, people kind of glommed onto Jackie. They wanted to dress like she did and things like that. We haven't had anybody since then. I mean, look at Obama's wife. I mean, Michelle, holy Hannah. I mean,
okay. Yeah. So does your wife want to see it?
I haven't asked her. I mean, she's welcome to if she'd like to. I mean,
you got to ask her, and if she wants to go, you need to, take her there.
Well, I don't even know where it's playing, honestly. But honestly,
all right. Anyway, interesting film. It's interesting that America cares so much about the entertainment value, so much about the First Lady. They want kind of all that stuff. They're way more into that, the entertainment side of things, by far, than they seem to be liberty in many cases. That's kind of my concern. Although I'd probably watch Melania, the film. I might wait for it to come into, be on Amazon where I could watch it at my house. That way I can kind of breeze in and out. My wife does want to see it. She's like, I just want to learn more about the First Lady and learn kind of how that is from her side of the discussion. We see so much about Trump dominating everything in the news. We don't know very much about Melania. It would sure be good to know a little bit more about the First Lady. So I get that desire and that understanding, and I support that. I think we ought to learn. Now, it is a polished delivery, so they're showing what they want you to see. Right. But at least it's a way. How about the Neil Diamond movie or whatever? It's not really about Neil Diamond. It's about a Neil Diamond cover person, but a very interesting movie. Did you see that? What is it called? Song Blue?
I haven't seen a movie for years in a theater. So, but
come on,
but let's go back to Trump for just a second. Here's the deal. You talk about it being polished and they tell the story they want and everything. I would like the backstory of how Melania got into this country. Now, the law is written in such a way that beautiful women that are models can come to America through a process that's much more, shall we say,
favorable,
inviting. And where does she fit in the who introduced her to Donald and was Jeffrey Epstein in the middle of any of these connections?
Yeah, you ain't going to get those answers, my friend.
No, that's the thing. That I would go to something like that to say, well, is this the way system that was really designed to work? I mean, and so something that had a little bit of intrigue with it might be of interest to me. But just to show I don't know how long it's been. I mean, probably many decades since some kind of beauty pageant ever came across our TV set, but they just don't hold any interest for me. So, we got to pick and choose, I think, and I've picked and chosen.
Yeah. Anyway, I went and saw Song Sung Blue, and I thought it was a pretty good movie. Had a little bit of F-bombs in there. I wasn't proud or happy about that. I had a few things that are like, whoa, but for the most part, it really talked about life bringing disappointment and pain. And it really covered this man who was a cover guy that covered Neil Diamond's music, and his wife and what they kind of went through. You're not alone in those feelings of pain and disappointment. She got hit by a car and it changed their life. She lost part of her leg, and they say a lot of it's a true story. Simple acts like singing together help people keep going. Hope doesn't erase sorrow, but it does make it bearable. And it was a good movie in a lot of ways, because you identify with the characters and the struggle and the underdog and the, in a lot of ways, I thought it was a very good movie. So there you have that. Pretty interesting. I did go see that. I haven't seen the Melania movie yet, though. And
well, let me
would
know
like
how
to.
It turns out.
Part of the point about entertainment, Doctor, is it's here to stay. Whether we like the bread and blood and circus and all that kind of stuff, it's here to stay. And I try to keep up on entertainment enough to where I can have conversations with people and express interest in things they're interested in, and it kind of builds, a little bit of relationships with people. If I stay out of the entertainment world and America's so focused on entertainment, I don't even have hardly anything to talk to people about. It's a little bit difficult in that regard, right?
Well, you're way beyond my expertise level when you get into the entertainment, social stuff. I mean, I'm kind of a, meat and potatoes, bread and butter kind of guy, and we kind of keep plowing ahead and just do what we can. But
here's the interesting thing, though. You're the one talking about the film, and you're also the one talking about this kidnapping.
Well, the
Guthrie
film, by the way,
kidnapping question, right?
The film came up in a question. I mean, so maybe I couldn't have cared less. I don't know, but I did talk about it. But you're right, the kidnapping
I'm just
thing,
saying the public brought that up to your attention, and the reason we're talking about it is because the public brought it up, right?
Yeah. And maybe we can move on to this kidnapping thing. I don't know. Have you been following that?
A little bit. Set the stage so people understand, and then we can discuss it.
Okay. Savannah Guthrie is the host of the Today Show on NBC.
It's Guthrie, right?
Guthrie, correct.
Guthrie, yep.
And her mom is Nancy Guthrie. She's out in Tucson, Arizona.
And she's 83 years old, the mom.
And she's got some medical issues. Her cognitive ability is pretty solid. They talk about last between Saturday and Sunday. So it's been a week now. She disappears from her home. And
they say taken from her bed, right?
Well, that's what we think, but there's been some herky-jerkiness about the whole event.
Yeah, there's blood on the porch. They now say that it's hers.
Yeah, and I think the police overlooked that originally. I think some reporter wrote that. But at any rate, here's I guess we could cover it from a lot of different angles. But one thing that's a little bit shocking to me is that during that week period of time, I wonder about how many vulnerable adults, or aged adults, have walked away from their rest homes or maybe escaped from their family care center or whatever. How many children at risk were kidnapped or maybe runaways or living on the street or whatever. And I think about the intense media coverage that's been going on this particular issue. And it's almost like it's the tail wagging the dog in a way. I mean, you might remember a few months ago in northern Utah, we had 2 police officers that were killed in a shooting. And I don't know as there was a single solitary national story that was done on that. And then again, all these other vulnerable adults, children at risk, and runaways and kidnappings and blah, 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 blah. And there hasn't been anything said any time. And I wonder, why does this one get all the press?
What makes this one go viral? Why does this one get so much attention? Is it placed to distract from other topics? What gives with it? They say there's a ransom that was given. They say that somebody tried to, put together a phone call and a ransom, and that person was a fake and got arrested. I mean, there's all kinds of twists and turns to this. We'll continue to talk about it when we come back, ladies and gentlemen. It's an interesting story, to say the least, and why it's getting so much attention is what's kind of beyond me. And I think Dr. Bradley's right about that. I've got a couple of thoughts on my own. It does have to do with cover up and focus, though. We're being replaced every time with distractions. Hang tight. God save our republic.